started showing up. Prompt here. Okay, welcome to the August 10th, 2023 meeting of the Town of Berthoud Planning Commission. I'll call the meeting to order at approximately 6 p.m. Okay, it's the tradition of the Planning Commission to say the Pledge of Allegiance, so please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. With that, Clerk Samora, will you please call the roll?
Chairperson Anderson,
Present.
Vice Chair Kurtz,
Present.
Secretary Van Bentham.
Here.
Commissioner Feldbush.
Here.
Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Wing.
Here.
Great, thank you. Okay, I'm Karen Anderson. I'm the current chair of the Planning Commission. I'd like to thank you all for being with us tonight. Copies of tonight's agenda on the table right on this little black table right here in front of us. Please take one. Please mute your cell phones at this time. And Clerk Samora, is there anyone on Zoom?
There is one participant on Zoom.
Thank you. Okay, so we do have Zoom participation. Okay, the members of the Planning Commission are all volunteers. Our duty is to review application materials provided, hear public testimony, hear from the applicant, and then discuss the matters before us as they comply with the land use code review procedures. I have some brief comments about the role of the Planning Commission for the audience, both of those, both here and our participant on Zoom. The Planning Commission acts as an advisory board to the Town Board of Trustees. We review and make recommendations on land use issues within the town of Berthoud. Some decisions regarding preliminary plats, we'll hear one of those tonight, and conditional use permits, for example, are heard by both the Town Board and Plan Commission. Some decisions, such as final plats, again, we'll review one of those tonight as well, rest with the Planning Commission. We have staff in attendance tonight to both provide us with presentations of the agenda items, answer our questions, and to work with the Planning Commission regarding the criteria for approval as outlined in the municipal code. We also gain insight from the information and viewpoints you provide. Your input is welcomed and appreciated. You're here to listen to and carefully consider all relevant information items for public hearing. The public hearing listed on the agenda. If you wish to speak tonight, you will be recognized by me. When you come to the lectern, please provide us with your name and spell any uncommon names so that the record will accurately reflect your comments and your address. We ask that you keep your comments relevant to the land use matter being discussed, and we ask that you direct your comments to the members of the Plan Commission. You will have 3 minutes to speak. Okay, the next item on our agenda is the approval of the minutes for the June 22nd and July 27th meetings. Does anyone have anything they wish to amend with the minutes? Changes? Okay. If no changes, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
With a motion and a second, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those nay, abstentions. All right. So been moved and seconded and approved. And the minutes of June 22nd and July 27th are approved. Tonight we have 3 land use items to be heard. Staff will introduce each item, followed by a staff presentation. The applicant will then make their presentation. After the applicant's presentation, the public hearing will open, and if you signed up to speak, you may do so at that time. Your name will be come to the lectern, please. Okay, Ton Hildebrand of the Berthoud Community Development Department will now introduce the first item and make the staff presentation. The first item is the Ludlow annexation and rezoning.
Hey, good evening, Chair and Planning Commission. I am Ton Hillenbrand, Senior Planner. So this item before you this evening is item number 5 on tonight's agenda. This is the Ludlow Sliver rezoning. So the subject property is an approximate 0.4 acres and is located between Highway 287 and South Berthoud Parkway, approximately 1 mile south of the intersection of South Berthoud Parkway and Mountain Avenue. It is south of and adjacent to the Ludlow Farms property and northwest of Harvest Ridge subdivision. This request is for a rezone to suburban residential, or SR, from Lamar County RR2, which is rural residential, in conjunction with an annexation request. This proposed rezone is south of the Ludlow Farms property, which was annexed to the town of Berthoud in 2010 and received approval of a final plat in 2011. The subject property was inadvertently left out of the original Ludlow Farms property and of the annexation in 2010, as seen in the images on the screen and in the staff report. This proposed rezone is in conjunction with an annexation request would address the inadvertent omission. If approved, the resultant zoning would be consistent with the remainder of the Ludlow Farms property to the north. Additionally, the subject property would be incorporated into the overall Ludlow Farms development project and thereby reflected in the rezoning and neighborhood master plan approved by the town in 2023. The property would be incorporated into the proposed open space for the development, and obligations for the overall development project would include this sliver of land. Rezoning is addressed through an official zoning map amendment. The Town of Berthoud Development Code Section 30-3-110D states for the purpose of establishing and maintaining sound, stable, and desirable development within the town, the zoning map should not be amended except when it addresses one or more of the criteria in the table provided in the staff report and seen on the screen before you. Staff finds that the proposed zoning meets criterion number 2. The planning team has no concerns with the proposed rezoning and finds that the SR Suburban Residential Zoning District meets the intent of the code. Therefore, staff recommends that the Planning Commission recommend approval of the request to rezone the .436 acre of property to SR Suburban Residential as per the findings of the staff report, should the town board of trustees approve the annexation request. And just so for your knowledge, the Ludlow sliver annexation and rezone is scheduled for the board of trustees taking place on September 12th. And then just before I wrap up, I am available for any questions. The applicant is also available. They will not be doing a presentation this evening, but they are present to answer any questions you may have. So I'm available for any questions you may have.
Commissioners, questions of Ton or the applicant? No?
I don't have any questions.
Questions?
No.
Okay, great.
Excellent. Thank you.
We can go, thank you, Ton. We can go right to our hearing for public testimony. Public hearing is open. If you have something you'd like to comment on with regard to this land use item, please come to the lectern, state your name and your address. Anyone? No? Okay. With that, we'll close the public hearing. And the commission will deliberate. Comments? Commissioners?
Feels pretty straightforward.
Yeah. Just correcting an error.
Housekeeping.
Right.
I mean, interesting when you see that one sliver and you realize that, yeah, that had to be somewhat just an error maybe in how it was defined or something.
Yes, I am interested in the story, but that's not.
Yeah,
our purview.
I was too when I read it. I was like, what was the real story behind it? I know, someone got
Sure.
that page dipped in their coffee somehow or something. We'll go with that one. All right, well, if we don't have any more deliberation, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move to forward a motion of approval of the request to zone the 0.436 acre property to SR Suburban Residential to the Town Board of Trustees, should they agree to the annexation request. The motion of approval is due to the findings in the staff report, including compliance with the land use code, the criteria of approval found in section 30-3-110D, and the comprehensive plan.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Brett seconds. Okay. Clerk Samore, will you please call the roll?
Commissioner Wing.
Here.
Commissioner Smith?
Yes.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Wing, you indicated here.
I got confused, I'm sorry. I'd like to approve it.
Thank you. Commissioner Feldbush?
Yes.
Secretary Van Bentham?
Yes.
Vice Chair Kurtz?
Yes.
Chairperson Anderson?
Yes. With that, the motion carries. Thank you, Commissioner, that was quick. Okay, let's move on then to the second land use item on our agenda, the Vantage 7th filing. And Will, I believe you're going to make our staff presentation.
Good evening, everybody.
Good.
Let me pull this up real quick. Yep, so as far as the case goes, apologies. There we go. So, this probably looks familiar to you, because we heard the preliminary plat about a month and a week ago, for this same area. And as you can guess, there's nothing that's changed since that preliminary plat. So it's still that R3 zoning, approximately 8.3 acres, still the same 60 proposed duplex or single family attached units as was proposed on that. The only difference that's gonna be on this slide than you saw the last time is that it's now for a final plat rather than that preliminary plat. So getting into it, this is the kind of top half of the development, so you can kind of see it enters into these where there's garages on either side, and then the homes front into these kind of open courtyards in between the two developments. And the applicant will have some prettier pictures, but these are kind of just the details. And then again, same thing for that bottom, and then a little detention area down there in that southeast corner of the project. Getting into your zoning map, you can see it's zoned that R3, which allows for a little higher density than the R1 that surrounds it. And then getting into your future land use map, this was discussed during our meeting and then as well during the Board of Trustees meeting for the preliminary plat. And during that, they pretty much concluded that it was probably an error that it's listed as this open space rather than the more residential duplex development that's been proposed since the beginning of this project. So getting into the criteria, the first one is does it conform to that preliminary plat in all the measurable degrees in which it does. It's identical to that preliminary plat. Second one is conforms to the code, port plan, and comprehensive plan. So we kind of got into that with the the zoning and that future land use map. So with these kind of garden frontages and things like that, it's a nice blend of those two goals of the future land use map as well as the zoning map. So we found it does conform with that one. And then the last one is sufficient water and other technical standards for the site, which beyond just planning, engineering and public works departments as well reviewed this, and they found that it was in conformance with those criteria. So with that, pretty short and sweet for findings and recommendations, but we are recommending approval of the final plat, and I can answer any questions, and then the applicant also is here as well.
Any questions of Will, commissioners?
So did you, just super quick, Bob, you said that there's nothing substantial and that it changed between, I wasn't at that meeting when this was.
Right, yeah.
So nothing substantial other than it's now final, and no lot lines have moved or anything.
Yeah, well, there's one word difference on each page, and that's final
You
instead of
didn't mention
preliminary. Yeah,
Cool, just wanted to double check, thanks.
thank you.
Did the applicant have a presentation?
Just,
If you were going to step up.
Kristen Turner, 444 Mountain Avenue. Good to see you again. I will also be extremely brief since we were just here a few weeks ago and I know everybody, almost everybody, heard everything that we spoke about. So we're gonna skip right past location since you guys know where this is. So just to show you, the approved neighborhood master plan on the screen is on the left. And the proposed plan is on the right. As you can see, it looks just like the neighborhood master plan, which also looks like the preliminary plat. And now, as Will mentioned, we changed the word preliminary to final, and we're at final with the same plan. So here's just the plan on its own. A couple of the key highlights that we talked about last time we were here too is that these are rear-loaded streets. So we've got front doors facing the streets. That creates a really nice pedestrian experience without having any kind of curb cuts cutting up that road network. For those units that are not facing a street, they are facing a nice green belt area, so they have a space to spill out into and be able to use. So it should be a really nice feeling, a unique feeling within there. In addition, open space was a key component in this overall master plan, and as you know, this is one of the final tracks to be developed for the overall subdivision. So we have had a focus on that open space and particularly the pedestrian connections through the entire neighborhood. You'll notice along the entire west side of the property, there's a trail system that's connecting from existing trails to the south. It will connect to the neighborhood park that's located on the other side of the street to the north. And then we do have connections that run east to west through the neighborhood and help provide connections to other trail stubs throughout the neighborhood as well. And then finally, the last thing that we are excited to see with this development is just that it's the addition of a new product type within the Vantage subdivision and a little bit more variation of product type within the town of Berthoud as well. Always something that we're looking for, so nice to be able to provide a different type of housing for folks that may be looking for something different than your traditional single-family detached. And that's all I've got for you for tonight, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them, otherwise I will leave it there.
Thank you. Oops. Any questions for the applicant?
I have one.
Yes.
It's not intended to be a gotcha, but on the slide prior to this one,
Uh-huh.
I just spotted a difference in the count of structures here on the east side.
In the what?
And there's 7 duplexes shown on this slide that we're looking at right now. And I thought I saw that there were 6 in the old sketch. So again, I just happened to catch it.
Go back.
If you go back one slide,
Sure.
please.
There we go.
So along that sort of north-south,
Mhm.
on the image to the left, there are 6 duplexes. The
Okay.
image to the right, there are 7 duplexes.
You are right.
Now,
And
it
there-
looks like the layout looks like it matches the rest, but I just wanna make sure that we're not seeing something that adjusted.
Nope, that's correct. There was an increase of 1 duplex unit from the neighborhood master plan to preliminary.
Okay.
Preliminary and final match, and that change in unit counts is permitted as part of the process because it's limited.
Good catch.
Cool.
Good
Thanks.
catch.
Even a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and again.
Those magazines where you find the things.
I'd never heard that.
Right.
Any other questions, commissioners?
No,
Thank you.
Thanks.
With that, I'm going to open the public hearing, and as I said before, if you have a comment to make, please come to the lectern, state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes to speak, so. Anyone have a comment about this? No? Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing. Okay. Commissioners, time to deliberate. Questions, discussion? Who wants to start?
Similarly, very straightforward. Final matches preliminary, so.
And I think we were pretty thorough, I think, a few weeks
Yeah,
ago in our questions and
Yeah.
our exploration, so I'm comfortable with this as well.
I agree. And I think that the green one is still exciting. I think that layout is really interesting.
I love that too. I love how you have those spaces, the green spaces. And with that, then, if there's no more discussion, I would entertain a motion.
Make a motion. I move to approve the final plat application for the 7th filing of Vantage due to the findings in the staff report, including compliance with the land use code, criteria for approval found in section 30-3-108C, the Vantage Neighborhood Master Plan and the Comprehensive Plan.
One second.
So we have a motion and a second. Clerk Samora, will you please take the roll?
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Feldbush,
Yes.
Commissioner Wing,
Yes.
Secretary Van Bentham,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kurtz,
Yes.
Chairperson Anderson.
Yes. So that land use item was approved unanimously. We'll move to our third land use item of the evening, which is the West Side Crossing commercial final plat. And Will, you're up again.
Good to see you again. Alrighty. Okay, so for this one, good news, we haven't seen this one yet, so yeah, so new stuff to learn. So I guess that's not true, cause it's on a phase 2, so we've seen portions of this one. But what we're here tonight to talk about is the southern portion of the West Side Crossing development. So this is for a preliminary plat for about 11.9 acres. If you look at the picture on the left, you can see Mountain Avenue or County Road 8 there, and then 287 going north-south on the left of the picture. Just to the north of this is the other half of that West Side Crossing, so that first phase where there is some single-family and multifamily development. It's currently under construction, so they should be breaking ground on some of the vertical pieces in the coming months. Getting into the actual project, so you can see on this picture kind of the outline of seven lots for commercial development. So one larger lot in the northeast, kind of tucked back from that Mountain Avenue 287 corner, and then basically a band of lots that kind of run the outline of the project. As far as your zoning map, you can see the boldly squared C2 down there in the bottom left. That's the part we're looking at today, that multifamily, that first phase, that R4 just above it. Then it's basically surrounded by PUDs, so Gateway just to the east there, to the southeast, that being Ludlow, which was rezoned a couple months back. And then getting into your future land use map, you can see it is that suburban business is called out, which is within the goals of what this plan is looking to do. Alright, getting into the words of the PowerPoint, the first one is consistency with the code. For all intents and purposes, this one is, it is in conformance with that code. It meets all lot size requirements and things of that nature. The second one is it's consistent with the approved concept plan and incorporates town's recommendations and any conditions of approval. We did find that it meets this criteria, so the concept plan had a slightly different layout to the commercial than what this one is. The next one being that conformance with zoning, which commercial to commercial, that C2 to all commercial development. Preferred land use map calls this out as that suburban business, which also, again, goes for that commercial. And it, with that comprehensive and port plan. So we did find that it meets these criteria. The next one is the utility and transportation design is adequate given existing and planned capacities of those systems. This one, some of those ones I'll defer to our engineers that review this plan, and they found that it did meet the criterias through their traffic studies and utility plans and things of that nature. The next is those negative impacts being mitigated on neighboring properties. For this, this is the same idea that's been in there since the beginning of this development. This will be that commercial area. So any of those negative impacts are are going to be limited or negligible. The next one is that need or desirability within the community. Again, since this is what was proposed during the concept plan, as well as that original preliminary plat, and now this one, there is a need or desire for more commercial development, and on a very high impact corner like Mountain Avenue and 287. And then the last one is, has the applicant addressed comments received from the public during the public comment portion of the process? So before this meeting, a letter was mailed out to all neighbors, letting them know this meeting was here and to contact if they wanted to provide any public testimony. None was received during that, but if there are any public here tonight, the applicant can address those concerns. So finally, the the recommendation for tonight is to recommend approval, or to recommend a recommendation of approval to the town board, with the one following condition that they'll address outstanding staff comments that were attached to your staff report. Just to give you a kind of a rundown on what those are, there's one about some drainage along Meadowlark and making sure to address that. And then there are some from the Little Thompson Water District, with just more on the grammatical side of things about labeling and that kind of stuff. So those were the only comments left on there, and I can answer any questions, and the applicant's here with the presentation as well.
Commissioners, questions?
No.
Okay, can you explain the comment about drainage?
Yeah, I can explain it a little bit but basically there are some drainage concerns on there that most likely with the build out of this development will address those drainage concerns along Meadowlark. Because from my understanding, there's the tension ponds that are a part of this development that'll get built that'll address any of that issue. But it's just that's something they need to make sure to look at when they're doing their final construction drawings. And I think the applicant probably can address that a little better than I can, but.
Any other questions?
Just to follow up, is that in conjunction with, I think when we saw the residential to the north, there were comments regarding final resolution of drainage design or something or other.
Yeah, I wasn't here for when that part was coming through. I will say they built one of the detention ponds on this portion during that to address some of that. But
Just sounds familiar. It sounds like everything's sort of waiting to sort of finalize and then it needs to get sort of like finalized.
right, it's one of those things where things are going through phases, so you just gotta piece it together.
Thank you.
Other questions for Will? Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
With that, we'd ask if the applicant has a presentation.
Pointer, pretty tricky and fancy to use.
I don't think it works.
Oh, great.
Yeah. But the left and right does.
Alright.
Yeah.
And your name and address, please.
My name is Scott Carpentier. I live at 8340 Loudon Circle in Windsor. I'm the owner of the property that we're talking about right now and the development we're doing. And I'm gonna be here just to really take you back just a little bit on the first phase. Some of you weren't here before on our vision. If you'll indulge me, I've got a quick little video that shows you that vision. And then I'll get through this thing as quick as I can. It seems like we're on a pretty good pace tonight. So I gotta say, John, I'm still trying to figure out how you counted up those duplexes that fast and the flip of the screens like that, that was quick. I had to go back and count with my fingers.
Spent my entire adult life doing it.
And I'll just talk out of school just a little bit about that drainage issue, since it just came up, okay? So just to give you a little bit more understanding of it. On south end of south end of Meadowlark by the stop sign right there, that was our construction entrance for phase 1. And so they put some rock base in there and they put a couple temporary pipes in there. As we learned here in the last 30 days with all the rain that we've had and the, excuse me, extreme winter we've had this year, those pipes were just a little bit too high for the total flow of water to go down. As of last week, we are totally signed off with the town and Baseline on that project, which included digging out that construction access and putting the drainage back the way it should be. We just did it now. We just eliminated any of those issues. And then, of course, we'll tighten it up as we go into the commercial too. Okay? And I think the water one was taken care of too. So I think we're in a pretty good stop with the 2 extra conditions out there, but Will make sure, I'm sure. All right, so how do I start this, Will? Just push the button?
Just left and right, I think.
All right.
Maybe.
So again, I'm gonna just get going here. We're West Side Crossing here. To some of you, we've been here for 4 years in front of you. From master plans to the approval process of the first phase of the residential. 56 lots, if you remember, that was 14 lots of paired homes up along the north end next to the neighbors, and that was in agreement with the neighbors to keep the low level of the rooftops down and everything for them and maintain their view. And then in the center is duplex lots. So with everything being signed off, if you've driven out there lately, it's looking pretty. We picked up all the trash, all the grass is in, the sprinklers are going, the playground will be in this week, and I think they're gonna start building permits, pulling permits here any day. So that went really good. So we'll just go review that, here we go. Again, West Side Crossing, you pretty much know where it is right now. I just thought that was a pretty good shot, looking out there to the east. Project again. This next one is the video, this is the parcel itself. This was originally 21 acres. You can see up on that north part, that was phase 1 of the residential. Phase 2 of the commercial was made up of all those different property owners. It was quite a task to get everybody online. If some of you who's been here for a while, remember that's the old Safeway lot. That old deal. That kind of never went through. So there was accumulation of I think 8 or 9 parcels that we had to buy up and get in sync, and we have, and everything's going good. We went through with the master plan already, and that was approved already as well. This is the video. Are you okay with that? This is just to show you a little bit of a vision, I hope, a little bit. Oh well, how do we do? What do we do? Oh,
There you go.
there it is. Yeah, I'll just hush up for a second. Should put some music to it, I think. This is center road between the commercial and residential. They were all alley loaded except for the north side. So, I think where our pride comes in a little bit, and I think Will mentioned it, is that this master plan was done a while ago as well as the video, and I think what you'll find here at the end here is that we are so close today from what we were back then, on what we're building here. We have certainly proven that on first phase 1, it's being all signed off and everything, which requires us to be pretty exact on everything. Oops. Okay, is that right, Will?
Yep.
All right, so let's just go through these quickly again. This was a little bit more colorful, full plat of everything that was going on, showing the residential, the original master plan on the commercial as well. There's just a couple things that are different on this that I'm gonna point out for you. This pointer doesn't work, but if you can look at the bottom right-hand corner down there, that kind of shows a canopy there on that corner. That turns out to be under contract with Les Schwab right now. And I think that's what Will was alluding to a little bit. With some of these end users, we kind of tweak some lot sizes around and get things to fit in for these particular vendors. And so that's about the only thing that's changed. And then the other one will be on the other corner, and I'll show you that too. I can't even read my own writing here. I think I was just showing the same thing. It's currently all, I was just showing that phase one is all approved, everything is closed out. It was in June, just last month, so we're really excited about that. Again, the park, you saw the park in place, the park will be in place. And this month it will be all installed and everything, and it's just gonna be off and rocking. I think they've already got a list of buyers for their houses, so they're anxious to get going. It's a pretty cool little project over there. And obviously, we know in this town, we need all we can get. This just shows and reminds you about the detention area, so we're kind of showing you this a little bit to show that a lot of the stuff that we did in phase one kind of bled into phase two commercial. And these are the detention ponds that you see on the right-hand side, and the back was the extra large green space belt that we did between those parent housing and residents. I think it's twice the size that we needed to do. So we kept that really nice, really pretty, really landscaped. Again, the detention ponds, you see them all coming all the way down. It's that bottom one on the right-hand corner that we were just talking about. Everything else is all done, landscaped, seeded, pretty, functioning really great. We've had tremendous rainstorms. That's been good for greenery, but bad for development. But it's all flowing really great. I just drove by there before I came in here, and can't even see water in there anymore. So we're really great about that. These were the entrances that we pulled up. There's three of them on Meadowlark. That bottom one on the right-hand corner is that construction entrance I was telling you about that we were using temporarily. And that's all been put back into a ditch form right now, and then the one entrance on 56. I will mention that I didn't hear it in Ludlow's or anything like that, but based on our approval of the master plan and the first phases and so forth, we are triggered on the commercial after a couple buildings really to put a stoplight in. So unfortunately for me, but good for the town, we have to put that stoplight in, or we need to put that or we will be putting that stoplight in. That we're working on that right now.
The stoplight would be on Mountain Avenue?
Yes, sir. Mountain and Meadowlark.
Okay.
So the way it was set up on the last approval from you folks was that once we have the traffic count up to a certain point, that would trigger in stoplights. You know, we were talking about Ludlow, you know, typically all four corners kick in on those four stoplights, but Ludlow Farms doesn't really have an access on Meadowlark. Theirs is down the street more, you know, so I don't know. It's still a little messy there, but we know it has to be done. This here is showing you the pedestrians. If you saw in that video on there, our goal was to make an intertwined project, a mixed-use project there where we got the residential right there, but easy to come in with gathering spots, stores. We have four major businesses under contract already. We are continuing to work on the grocery store. Some of that you were privy to it, know that we've had a few attempts with them right now. They are coming. The closer we get to building them, the more action we're getting from them. But it's a crazy world out there with those big grocers right now and pretty select. The other one is that we're trying to meet our goal with is not only to have a grocer there, but is to have a sit-down restaurant there. Which comes to our other point of change or just adjustment, where we're trying to gathering spots. I'm gonna come back to that again for a second. This was just showing you here in that master approval process. We were concerned about cars, people on the highway seeing the businesses. So we came up with a berming section, and that's just showing you the berming and the landscaping. Those drive-throughs that we'll see like that, for example, Wendy's or something, the cars won't be seen from the highway. And then that's probably 60 to 100 feet from the restaurant to the highway. It's a pretty big distance. Any questions so far?
I have a question. What's the square footage of the grocery
sir.
store?
What was it?
Square footage of the grocery store?
That is set up for 50,000 square feet. I can go into a conversation with you on that right now, but real quickly, it seems like some of these big brands are kind of going with a Costco mentality now, where they want bigger square footage and put everything, including the kitchen sink under it.
That's good size. That's a full grocery store.
Yeah. So, all right, so this one, I get confused. This is it. So now we're going into phase two. This plan really just shows you, I was gonna walk over there, but it really shows you before one of the concepts that we had while we were waiting around for the bigger grocers, because we wanted to stay flexible in case we had to run into the 120,000 square foot store or the 80,000 square foot grocery store. You can see on this plat here that the first four lots are already were already set up and designed, for the perimeter lots. And then we left what we call 5, 6, and 7 under one big tract there until we could find out what's going on. Our time has run out and we need to keep moving. So we've been at it for 4 years. We've been, we need to keep moving and go to our regular design that we have in front of you now. So this is the design again that we have in front of you. You can see we cleaned up that bottom right-hand corner a little bit. Took that canopy out of there. Somewhere in your notes, you might have read that we started off with 9 lots in the beginning and we came down to 7 now, and that's because we couldn't fit the businesses in those smaller lots. So the bottom right-hand corner there, that was showing the canopies right at the gas station and everything, it's no longer that. That's lot 1, we call that, and that's an oversized lot. We had to do some adjustments to the detention ponds. We had to get creative with coming up with some more creative detention ponds, underground detention ponds to make it all work. We worked with the town on that and kind of figured it all out, got that working. There's 2, as we go to the left, we call that lot 2. That's a gas station. It's already under contract. Lot 3 is our is our restaurant that we're trying to go for. This is the second of 2 adjustments that we made from the original plan. The sitting space out there on that corner we had to reduce a little bit because we needed some more parking spaces for a sit-down restaurant. There's enough there for a little fast food one, but there wasn't one for a restaurant that people could come and sit down at. So those are the only 2 places of adjustment as we go around the horn there. Lot 4 going up there, and lot 5, 6, and of course the grocer is lot 7. The grocer is still set up, to answer your question, on at 50,000 square foot, but you can see the 2 wings that are on each side. That's where we hope to get some other boutique, smaller stores, smaller businesses, and some more of that interaction.
We have questions you want us to wait?
I was just wait till he's finished.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, why don't we wait till he's finished and then we can ask questions.
Question?
Go ahead,
That's pretty much it. So that is what we're here for tonight, really, is to bring us into this last final plat. We're here looking for our preliminary plat right now. We're set for the board, I think, in the end of August, the 22nd, and hopefully we can move forward. We are certainly ready to do it. This last year was an educating year development-wise, not only was it the worst winter rainstorm in 42 years, I think, but we also hit economics at an extreme high with costs at 25-30% overruns. It kind of really hurt, but we were already committed and had to finish the project and keep going. So we're anxious to get into this next phase while we still have equipment sitting there and can keep on going. So with that, I think that's it. I hope that was simplified enough. Is there any questions for me?
Commissioners have questions?
Yeah, I have a couple.
Sure.
And please, if my questions are out of scope or they're gonna be addressed somewhere else, just educate me on that. But a grocery store of 50,000 square feet is gonna have multiple semi deliveries a day, every day. And then a lot of little trucks, will be coming in to service that store. How is a semi, again, this is where someone needs to say, Brett, that's not our scope to talk about this. How's a semi gonna back in to this?
Fair question. We had to consider that. I say that there is an answer, but that will be addressed when they do the site plan on a particular site. It's the building itself. We need to remember what we are doing on this project is that we are selling the lots. Unlike a lot of subdivision or a lot of grocery centers will just lease them and then build a suit. So we're selling these lots, these are all under contract to sell, and then they will come in with their own site plan process with all those answers for you on how to do that. But because we needed to at least preliminarily design it so we can address it, and my engineer is back here right now, Jake, but that center road between the commercial and the residential is called Glacier Road. And that's what you see at the north end up here, and right in there you can see there's a loop that we'll be designing a little turnout on the left-hand side of that road that will allow these trucks to back in. You see that little white space there behind the building?
I do.
That's the one. That's the spot.
And then typically a grocery store has a lot of lighting on the back of it. I don't know if that's controlled by city code, but just the residences back there. First of all, the noise of trucks coming in late at night, 1, 2, 3 in the morning, and then all the light. Again, if these were addressed somewhere else, that's fine, but that would be a pretty serious concern if I were those residents.
Again, addressed at their approval process, but we did have to deal with that ourselves or address it ourselves at that point. And so not only do your guidelines require the lights, but it was more of an issue for us for the residential lots, you know, even going back, have backyard lights and stuff like that had back there going and shining into the houses. So I think the guidelines call for down pointed lights.
Dark
And-
sky compliance,
Pardon me?
dark sky compliance.
Sorry, I knew there was a word for it.
Building.
Yeah.
And then again, this may be all in what you're saying, but do you know what the ratio is to parking spaces to square footage for the grocery store?
4 spaces, is it?
For every 1,000 square feet or what?
4 spaces for every 1,000? 3?
You know?
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's right in there, and that was part of our
Again, who
problem.
would control that? Whose call would that be?
So, yeah, so there's a requirement in the code.
Okay.
So it would need to meet that. You know, this step is more drawing the lines for the lots
Okay.
than the
Yeah,
actual.
yeah, no, thanks.
And so, yeah, they would need to address that when doing that development.
Good questions though, but I believe we use 4 spaces per 1,000 square foot on this. And to give you a little reference, 50,000 square foot is most of the grocery stores that you see out there right now, is about the size of them. Hayes, for example, over here is 20,000.
Right.
So, I think most of them ran around 50, and that's what we geared up for. This was Safeway's design, actually,
Sure,
so that was their floor plan.
thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a question. I saw in the video, and I think that you mentioned the outdoor seating area, and I got a sense that that was meant as kind of a community seating area, but maybe it's meant for the seating of the restaurant, and could you clarify, like, is that part of the seating in the restaurant, or is that meant for like people to come and eat with their own food?
It's been a touchy question, you know, because we are, the concept is for everyone, as you can see with the sidewalks, to be able to mingle around, bring your dogs around.
Yeah.
We're gonna have different we're gonna have food here, stores there, mostly, but it's certainly open to the public to be able to use it anytime they want it.
Okay.
I hope that answers it. Some of those pictures that you saw were more up there on the top pictures with the grocery store and those wings, the wings on the buildings that you see. Hopefully, you know, an ice cream parlor or something where people can come in with the dogs and coffee shop or something like that.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
So I just had a little bit of follow-up on the commissioner's questions, and again, if we're just doing preliminary plan, it might not be there, but in terms of the actual, did you say that Glacier Avenue was gonna be like the main commercial access to the lot, to the property?
They will.
So the plan is to have all of the deliveries, or the majority of the deliveries come across the back of that, whatever that lot B1, whatever that is, the grocery lot, along all those townhouses.
Well, it's only one side of houses, remember?
Right, but it's the front of the houses.
And it's the
They're
back
alley
side of the
loaded,
house,
right.
it's the back side of the houses as well. But the answer is yes, and I don't know if all the deliveries will be in there, we were kind of focused in on the big trucks, the 18-wheelers, a lot of the other ones are the supply vans and stuff like that, or,
Right.
you know, stuff like that, they can slip in and out of there in other entrances.
I understand sort of why it has to be laid out that way, but I think probably just to sort of enter it into the record as we get into sort of like final site plan development and that sort of thing. That's a lot of commercial traffic to run across a fairly dense streetscape, residential streetscape. And for trucks coming and going, semi-trucks, smaller delivery trucks, that sort of stuff to be coming and going and turning and all that sort of stuff along Glacier, where I'm assuming you've got street parking across these townhouses and stuff. That just sounds like a recipe for trouble.
Aren't they garages?
Yeah, that's just.
In the garages.
And I might mention too, the reality of
That's
that.
the garage side?
Yeah.
I thought you said those townhouses were alley loaded.
The duplexes are alley loaded, the parent homes are not. And also, just to answer your question on that one too, because we did explore that, the real schedule of trucks is what? It's really between, I think they said between like 7:30 and 10:30 or something like that. And there's really only a couple that come a week.
Mhm.
You know, it's not like a daily process where you've got 3 or 4 18-wheelers coming in all throughout the different day or anything.
Sure. And I'm not trying to design that right now, I guess I'm just trying to get that into the record as staff continues to work this through. I may be reading this wrong, those two-story townhouses, I'm reading an alley through the center and an alley loaded, so I'm looking at the fronts of these houses heading north and south.
You're correct.
So you're basically looking at the streetscape along Glacier. I see you've got a lot of room for landscaping and new treescape and that sort of thing, and that's good. But I guess I just kind of want to mention to Commissioner Wing's comments, there's an awful lot of commercial traffic that you're asking to come in right along that relatively dense residential street.
Well,
Right, so just, again, we're not designing it right now.
we'll be prepared with an answer for you.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's good.
I think it will be interesting for me when it comes to that point to really get clear on really what kind of traffic we're talking about and how often the traffic comes, you know.
Comment related, the other thing that happens, if you don't believe me, just drive behind almost any grocery store. You're gonna have cardboard bales out there, you're gonna have pallets out there, you're gonna have extra trailers that they park, you're gonna have dumpsters, which are really prone to rodents. So again, this is the preliminary, but at some point, I think there's a lot of discussion around some of those subjects.
I'm assuming that will be done by walls, you know, hiding all that stuff. Again, that will be them though, at that point when they come in for their plan and to get approved by you folks then. Right now, I think Will said we're doing lot lines right now and just separating the parcels themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be responsible and liable for all of the infrastructure, everything from this asphalt down.
Is this landscaping on this picture, is this fairly representative of what the landscaping might be when this is built out?
That's what's being bidded right now, what we see. And I might mention the phase one is exactly the same.
So a question on that, these are all individually owned lots, right? They will be,
Yes, sir?
but yet you will have the consistency of the landscaping, the lot owner wouldn't vary from necessarily that.
We'll go into details again, but there is a homeowners association, there's actually two of them. There will be one for the commercial and one for the residential. And that will take care of all that common areas, what you're talking about. The landowners are responsible from the property line in.
Thank you.
You mentioned Les Schwab, which one of these lots would Les Schwab?
We call lot one, which is the bottom right-hand corner.
And the park, I see the park is next to the townhomes, is that, am I missing something?
That's correct. Well, yes, it's the first, you can see it, it's the first green up there. And right to the, not that I can reach it or anything, but the first, right to the left of the bottom of the first green is the playground.
And you said that's being built now?
It is. All the infrastructure for that, we had to do some special drainage for it, we had to do some foundational walls for it. That's all done, the playground is bought and everything. The only thing that's slowing us up right now in technicality is that there is a structure going on, you know, like a roof, a pergola type thing, a metal one, and that's in your system right now to get approved. But they're expected to have it all done by August, and all the money is sitting in escrow for them.
Has there been any thought about or discussion about putting anything either in the park or in some other area here that would be maybe representative of Berthoud, some, I don't know, piece of art or a statue or something like that?
Some art, is that what you're saying?
Yes.
I'm certainly open to it. The park is, I'm sorry, it's really called a pocket park, you know, so it's a little tinier than a park that you're thinking. The detention pond can double or triple as a play area for kids and stuff to run around in there in the green grass, you know. But I'm not opposed to that. I'm not sure where that would come into play at what time, but right now we don't really own it anymore. It's already phase one's property. Not to say we can't still do something, no.
Just wondering about there or somewhere in the commercial area.
Yeah.
Where there could be something that would be something representative of Berthoud.
We have a pretty cool monument sign that we're designing that's really Berthoud oriented. You know, remember, we're the gateway corner there.
Right, and
Does
that's
that
why,
go right on
because
the
it's,
corner?
because it's
and
gateway.
so we're excited about that.
That's what I,
Massive.
Yeah, that's gonna be the ta-da, you know, coming
And
in.
sorry, where will that be?
That's on the corner right there, 56 and 287.
Okay.
You got a special part carved out for it. Now, and then there's small signs on each entrance as well. But that's the big to-do out there, is that monument sign. It's an expensive one.
I don't know if this horse has left the barn, but the park where it is now, as I'm reflecting on that, and all that commercial traffic going right by the park, again, if it's a done deal, but I don't know if you have an opportunity to rethink where that is, cause that's where all those trucks are gonna come in all the time, right next to that park, so.
Yeah. I hear the sensitivity to the trucks. I can't change the park. It is open to the whole neighborhood though, and we also put a trailhead in for the whole neighborhood too, to bring the cars in and park the dog and take their dogs for a walk and tie into that trail on the west side there.
I mean, I was thinking the same thing as you.
I mean, with a
It'd be-
fence or a wall or something, just between that park and that road.
An artistic wall is what I was thinking.
Right.
Something that would be, so that
It's possible.
children can't run in the street right from there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that my conversation might be over. That would be a clarifying question for staff
Probably.
probably.
About 20 foot wide of buffer right there between the playground and the street. Pretty big buffer.
You're talking Meadowlark or are you talking the,
Glacier, between the park and Glacier Road.
Okay.
And Meadowlark, well, that's got a big, you guys have been out there lately, that's got a big easement between the park and the Meadowlark itself. We just grassed it, seeded it all and grassed it all, but that must be 75 feet.
Just thinking there could be something, some creative way to block that more from the street. Just something to think about, just throwing it out there.
We will. Yeah. Something to bring to attention that there's kids around, you know. Little wall, there could be something decorative done for sure.
Any other questions, comments, commissioners,
that's great.
the applicant? Thank you, sir. We
You okay, all right,
Thank you.
appreciate you
all right, thank you.
presenting and answering our questions. Okay, with that, let's open the public hearing. If there is anyone from the public who would like to comment, please come to the lectern at this time. Sir, please come to the lectern and state your name and your address.
My name is John Terrell. I'm at 1621 Mountain Avenue. I've got a business directly across from that. You know, one of the things, some of the things, my concern, I'm not against the project. I'll put that out there. I'm really concerned about the traffic in that area. So I have the business right on the corner, and I can already tell you the traffic's a nightmare. I never got a response to my letter. I made phone calls. I never heard back from you, ever. I wanna know how is that gonna, how's it gonna affect everything? We got Ludlow going in, a few other Vantage. That's one of the main entrances to town. How's that gonna be sustainable? We were talking about truck traffic and we only brought up the grocery store. What about the tire shop bringing their tires in? What about the gas station bringing the fuel in? What about Wendy's bringing their hamburgers in? That doesn't include the other businesses and the grocery store. I understand maybe they're gonna put a light there. I'm assuming they're gonna do crosswalks. People fly over there. I walk every day. Maybe some of you have seen me. I walk thousands of miles a year. So if you got questions about walking around Berthoud, I'm your guy. Okay? I love Berthoud. I want Berthoud to grow. I'd love to have our own grocery store, more restaurants. I wanna grow with the community. Years ago, they took our left turn. Okay, now they're gonna make it harder to get in. My traffic has to already go across the street and do some kind of funky U-turn. I don't know if there's enough traffic, enough road between the light at Meadowlark and the light at 287 without doing some widening, double lane there. It's insanity there. Look at the satellite pictures. They're running over my yard. I got foot deep craters because people don't know how to merge there. And now you're gonna slam another light there. How's that gonna work? Okay, I haven't heard anything about that. I'm not opposed to any of this. I'm not opposed to Ludlow. I want all this. But you gotta get with the state. What's going on with that corner? If there's an emergency, that's one of the only 2 or 3 exits out of town. What's that gonna happen? What's gonna happen there? Okay, I wanna grow with the community, I want everything to go down, but nobody seems to be returning my calls, especially when it comes to the traffic situation. I'd like to have my customers get into my shop without having to say, how do you get in this place? Then they tied it to the liquor store. That guy's not gonna work with me. I can't even get in there. I mean, it's that whole intersection, once the other stuff happens there with Ludlow, again, I'm all for it. Something major's gotta happen there. You gotta get with the state. Okay, there's gotta be some widening. Something's gotta go down there. Otherwise, I think it's a wonderful idea. I'm down. I want all of it. I want all of it. I'm a business owner. I wanna grow. I want the business here. But nobody's really, they're talking about later, but what's going on with the traffic? It's already insanity. Look at the videos. There's an accident there almost every day. Every day. They don't know how to merge. So really concerned about the future there, and what's gonna happen with the traffic. I'm sure there's some other things I wanted to say, but I don't know anything about the study. They're talking about a light there. How about the sidewalks? How are they gonna connect? There's a lot of walkers. Traffic's flying down that road. So that's all I want to say. Thank you very
sir.
much.
Appreciate it. Alright, is there anyone else from the public wish to speak? With that, we're going to close the public hearing. And commissioners, and applicant, Will, can you answer some of the questions about traffic, about the crosswalks for us?
I can. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Is that the vote for that question?
Yes, sir.
I have never met you. Sorry about that.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have seen him walking because I walk every morning and he and I have crossed paths several times.
It is a messy corner over there, that's right. So I encourage you, we are just in the middle of drawing up this traffic corner now. The town right now feels as though that our project will increase that corner traffic when it's fully built out by about 30%. So when we're talking to the town about right now and how to work all that stuff and that we do our traffic studies, that's about what they're thinking right now. On our side, we're doing a decel lane, we're doing an XL lane, meaning, when on 56, you got an extra little lane you go into so you can turn into the place, and the same thing when you're coming out. So we will be widening our side a little bit, and I believe, Jake, that we have to get some square footage off of each corner too, don't we, to make it work? He said the same thing I just said.
Can you repeat what he just said?
It's just what I said too. So we're widening Meadowlark Lane there a little bit for the traffic and for the stoplight. And we're setting up that decel lane and XL lane for a right in and a right out. So on our side of the street, all that would be widened and brand new. And I presume a crosswalk across the street, right? I'm not sure. We're right in the middle of that right now.
So what you're saying is some of this is still being formulated.
It is, that's where the different guy, both the town has turned me in as over to an engineer that designs traffic lights. And that's right now in the process of what he's doing right now, and we'll have to have that ready for our final plat.
My question there would be, is that light going to be one where the someone who's walking can press the button and stop the traffic and walk across the street?
That's the answer. I don't have an absolute for you, I presume, but I will find out for you. I think most crosswalks now always do. Again, I'll mention that Ludlow won't be using that corner, from what I can tell, which I find interesting. And the gas station is already there. I don't know what they're gonna do. And quite honestly, I really don't know how to get into your place either.
Well, they took over their left turn and now it's already difficult, and I mean, I like that you have a right in, right out. I'd like to have a road that goes right across.
I bet, yeah. So I encourage them this is the time between, right now, this next couple of weeks, to bring those questions up, and I can have a better answer for you. And assuming we will have a presentation for you on the final.
Thank you, appreciate that. Well, is that in progress?
The final plat?
Well, in other words, what we just were told was that this is being worked out now as far as the light and the crosswalk situation is, are you involved in, as our planning department involved in
Right,
this at
so
this point?
yeah, so whenever they submit the final plat, that's when they're required to do their 100% construction drawings with it for all those public improvements. So when that final plat comes in, that's when we'll do that full review. Most of the stuff during preliminary plat is more of, you know, expected trip counts, that kind of stuff, where it's a little more nebulous, and you kind of form what the most likely, you know, engineering requirements are going to be, and then during that final plat is where there needs to be more kind of concrete answers to it.
Is
Am I-
that the point you're also working with CDOT, or where do they come in on?
So CDOT is a referral on these preliminary plats, final plats, any sort of development that goes on that is gonna touch a CDOT roadway. They're a reviewer on those. And then, you know, whenever the developer does construction in that CDOT right of way, they'll also need to pull permits and go through their CDOT review processes as well.
So am I correct then in saying, correct me if I'm wrong, this is being thought about right now, but once we move from preliminary plat, that's when
That's when
The
concrete
details start
answers kind
getting-
of become, yeah.
So again, this isn't intended to be a gotcha question. There's a pretty substantial traffic study in our packet.
Mhm.
However, it talks about the Wisconsin Department of Transportation rather than CDOT. I don't know if those are just sort of standards that we're doing sort of as a preliminary study, or I just wanna make sure we're sort of like what we're talking about here. I just see WisDOT all over here.
Yeah, so I will say for traffic studies, I lean heavily on our engineers to review those. So not as much something that I personally look at as much as them. So they are looking for, you know, standards, you know, whether those are, you know, CDOT as well as, you know, just the Larimer County, you know, design standards for the roadways and how they meet those thresholds for requirements. So I don't personally have those answers for you. If you like, during the final plan, I can make sure one of our engineers here though,
I think that'd be
can
really
answer some
good.
of those questions for you.
I mean, it's obviously localized and it's for this lot, it's just the header talks about WisDOT versus CDOT.
Yeah.
And so I think, you know, given, I have the same thing kind of jotted down in my notes too, sir, it's like that's right there at 287, it is a busy intersection, folks are coming off of a fairly high speed, frankly too fast for what it's actually posted road coming off 287. Adding all this commercial traffic and all these sort of retail outlets in there. It's good to hear that we're studying it and sort of assume we were, but it'd be really good to have the traffic engineer be able to come out here and talk through this. Because what we're talking about, commercial access, we're talking about traffic movements, ins, outs, all that sort of stuff would be really good.
We can do our part as the town, but this is requiring working with CDOT. And they have their own timeline and their own schedule, which is where I think the problem is going to lie. So I think it's important we just make sure that's noted here and we continue to raise it to the attention. Especially going to the board of trustees too, so they're as well. And I've been following this project for a long time and I would say it comes up every single time, right?
Yeah.
This concern about this corner and this traffic, and I don't feel like I've heard a solution. And so it would be nice that we just keep that on the radar right now, and it's a safety concern.
and obviously something we're all gonna be looking for when that preliminary plat, I mean, excuse me, when that final plat comes before us.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I think there's something procedurally we'll need to discuss though, because the preliminary plat, condition 4 is where it actually specifically calls out that transportation is adequate. When you get to final plat, as long as like the lot lines don't change too
that's
much,
true.
then there's not much to do.
Yeah.
But obviously this is a concern, so I think there's kind of two options. One is pause, or two is
Condition.
approve with condition.
Yeah.
That final plat would only be approved once transportation is, you know, adequately addressed using CDOT standards and that there's kind of a vision presented for the Mountain Avenue corridor, not only, not just kind of, the feeder roads, I guess, or the artery roads.
So how would that work when there's another development on the other side that, so we're only seeing
I
one
know.
side of this?
In a way, sorry, we're kind of debating amongst ourselves, this is more like a condition, I guess, for staff in a way, or that we would wanna better understand this versus a condition for the applicant because of the broader nature of the traffic. So I guess I don't, if we can condition staff, can we condition staff? Not that.
You
it-
can
it
condition
sounds-
me, or you can just, tell me either one of
Yeah.
those is fine. I mean, I will say, traffic studies are meant to take the full build out into consideration, so not just the development that's currently going on, but any proposed or expected developments around the area. So it's meant to take that all into consideration.
And that's sort of what again, and I'm not an expert when I'm reading these traffic studies, but I got the idea that it was trying to take into account the entire area.
Right.
But, yeah, and I agree,
I
my,
don't know if Jake, do you wanna touch on any of the traffic study?
No, I'm just the civil engineer.
Oh, okay.
so, but yeah, we commissioners have the option of conditioning our approval if that's what we want to do. Um,
So I guess there's a couple things that are on my mind, and so I think there should be a condition. I think we need to be thoughtful how we condition it. Because it's a preliminary plat, it will go to the trustees. And so any condition we put on will be obviously putting kind of that item on notice that it's a concern. And they may require something else or know something else,
I agree. And I think that, given the scope of the traffic impact on the whole corridor, I'm wondering if having a condition for staff makes more sense than the condition for the applicant.
I think it's information for staff, we really can't put a condition on the preliminary plat that's just for the staff, that I'm aware of. Yeah, and that Tom's like, do that.
Yeah.
It's really difficult to hear back here. I have old ears.
So,
Yeah, I think, it's, if you look at the criteria for approval on your staff report, number 4 is the utility and transportation design is adequate given existing and planned capacities of those systems. And so I think perhaps the hang up right now is some sense that it may not be adequate,
I think that's
but it's hard to zero in perhaps on exactly where that inadequacy may be because I'm not a traffic engineer and we don't have a traffic engineer here.
Yeah.
So
would that make you believe that one of the other options we have is to delay this until we have that information before us?
it would help you zero in on whether or not your sense that there's an inadequacy will bear out.
I mean, that's only if there's something new to be brought to us. What would be new that would be brought to us?
It may be the traffic engineer's input. The applicant's if I were the applicant, I'd have my traffic engineer here to tell you that the plan is completely adequate and there are no inadequacies. That might be what I would pick up if I were the applicant from this discussion.
Can I make a comment? Can I still make a comment?
Go ahead.
Well, since it's an issue, if you did read the traffic study, then you'll find in it that the stoplights are not even necessary until over 3/4 of the development is developed, which really triggers into the grocery store itself. Everything else can be built before even that traffic study's built, and that's what gets it triggered. But through agreement, we were responsible and we agreed to go ahead and redesign the whole thing based on that traffic study that was done. And when they do those traffic areas, it's all 4 corners are considered. if you look at the traffic study, you can see they cite all four corners. They cite all the potential traffic that's coming from there, all the potential development that's coming into those corners, and then come up with their recommendation. So the only thing I'm a little bit slack on is the sidewalk itself, crosswalk itself. And I'll find that out for you, for sure, and I'll make sure it's a priority between here and the next time we come in here. But as far as adequacy of the traffic report, it's pretty complete, you know, it's pretty thorough. And you're right, CDOT is who else we're dealing with on there as well, and they have to bless that as well. So we have Aldridge, is it, that's designing the stoplight right now, who is the stoplight designers of the area, you know, and they got it all down. So we think we have addressed those things, and we have addressed those traffics, we have addressed the traffic swinging off that 287 like that, you know, and the means to be able to address it with the decel lane, the accelerator lane, and with the stoplights itself. Again, I just say it one more time, this is for design purposes right now that we're gonna design it ahead of time, but it's not even called for quite a bit of time. I don't know if that helps any.
It does, but I would, let me ask you a question, Will.
Yeah.
When we see a preliminary plat, will one of the standards be for approval that we believe that the roads and the pedestrian area, traffic, sidewalks, crosswalks are adequate?
Right, it is one of the criteria that they're adequate, and maybe as the applicants kind of stated, their traffic study says that it is.
But I guess what I'm saying is, when we're at the final plat stage, that will still be a criteria.
Yeah, so
I was gonna say, I am looking it up right now, it is buried in there, but under item number 2 for a final plat approval is all applicable technical standards, including the provision of water. Screen just turned off. Including the provision of water in sufficient amount of so kind of the description of the criteria focuses on water, but if you kind of go into the narrative of the criteria, the last sentence is the applicant has provided adequate plans for utilities and transportation systems. So I think reading that criteria, we could say if we don't believe there's adequate transportation capacity, we could still pause the final plat.
And that's what,
at that point.
so we have the opportunity at that point to say, look, we don't have enough here to say that we feel comfortable with this, and
and maybe if I can offer maybe an interim between, maybe now and the Board of Trustees for this similar preliminary plat is maybe a traffic memo to be included along with it that addresses these individualized concerns about the traffic, so, things about where, the truck paths and, how the crosswalk will be, where the crosswalks will be, and if it's signalized, maybe a traffic memo to go along with it that addresses those immediate kind of high topic concerns.
Well, I think that's a great suggestion. So are you, just to clarify, that would be before going to the Board of Trustees?
I think that could be, a traffic memo.
I think
that
that's
would be a
interesting
good
because,
interim.
I think my concern with putting through the preliminary plat with no condition is that once we're at final plat, it won't go to the board again, so we would be.
And then it's also, kind of something that, says traffic is a concern for the planning commission for
that's a
the
good
I can do
idea.
Board of Trustees reviews it.
So we're not designing it, but maybe there's an opportunity to actually have that expert available to answer questions in a public hearing with the town board.
With the trustees, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's good. I mean, I'm sensitive to, the applicant's 4-year project and move things along.
So
I'm
I'm sweat
sensitive
here.
to your project is desirable by the town too as well.
Right.
But at the same time, you kind of get one shot at the traffic.
Right.
At the
Right.
road.
We all have the same goal,
Yeah.
to make it safe and
Yeah.
make it flow.
Yeah, it feels like there's an expertise that's not in the room right now.
But if you allow us to keep going, I'll get that letter to you before we get in front of that board.
Which
And is the traffic, is it before it comes onto the lot, is it the streets? Is the, what happens on the lot, is that out of scope for the traffic? Traffic is just the streets? Understand the question?
Yeah. So the traffic, what we're talking about now, I think the major concerns are what's going on outside of the lot. I think once you get inside the lot lines, that's when the site plan
Okay.
comes in.
Okay.
And this will be required to go through a site plan review process for each commercial lot.
And if we have concerns about what happens on the lot, should we describe those concerns before it goes to the trustees or not?
I think we could capture it all.
Okay.
I don't think there's any harm in us capturing it all, to let them know.
The only issue would be a level of granularity since we're talking about selling of lots, not necessarily final design of the buildings. So I think we need to
Right.
just make sure we're not getting too into the weeds of the details around architecture and we don't quite have that sorted.
I was gonna give you a quick snapshot. There are so many problems with this, with the 18-wheeler pulling up to that grocery store. There are probably a minimum of 5 spots that truck cannot turn right now. And when it does, it goes onto incoming traffic. So that's a really, I just want the next group to hear we've got some real concerns about that. And if that all gets washed out in the final plan, fine. But I'm, mark my words, the way this is drawn right, there's no semi backing up to this
There.
store. It is, it can't do it.
I differ with that a little bit there respectfully, you know, the grocers that we have talked to have already blessed it. You know, so, but I am certainly conscious of the issue, and both of them will be addressed. The signal lighting and that traffic, as well as the 18-wheeler trucks coming in that glacier.
And I think I would feel more comfortable too if that was addressed in this memo that goes to the board. And I think what I hear is that we, for the most of us, I guess, the consensus of us, that we feel like the memo and making sure that you do have a traffic engineer with the board meeting would be very helpful for them.
I agree.
I'm a legal expert literally on grocery store parking lots.
That's all right.
In the last year, I've actually been on very similar things like this. And so I'm just, again, visually looking at this. I don't know who the grocery people are you're talking to. The way this is drawn right now, it's not happening. So again, this may look so different in the end state, but the way this is pictured right now, it's not, it's impossible.
Feel different about that,
Okay.
but again, that is gonna be at the site plan of the end user
Yep.
to be able to prove that out to you and make sure
There
all
are
that,
grocery stores being
all that
built
works.
today with
And
20
whatever-
receiving docks.
Pardon me?
There are grocery stores right now, built in the last 12 months, that have 20 receiving docks. This looks like it has one. So again,
Well, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. You're saying grocery stores have 20 receiving docks?
absolutely, plus.
20 delivery receiving docks, is that what you're saying that's typical?
Yes. So that's what I'm saying, this is gonna be a high volume grocery store, this is a great location. And every can that goes out comes in the back door. So it's gonna have a lot of product, and that product only comes on trucks. So,
Well, again, we'll have that precisely drawn out on a site plan for the end user. Let's hope we can get a grocery store in there.
I hope so.
I do too, it's not an easy task.
Right.
You know, but either way, whoever's in there is gonna have 18-wheelers to deal with, so.
Melissa, you had a question, right?
No, I was just in my mind comparing it to the way this common area in the Hayes Market is built. And it's very similar, and they make it work, but I understand
I
it's
think
half the size.
receiving docks are in the back, right? You know what that area looks like? You do?
Yep.
And is there other stuff going on back there, or is it
Yep.
pretty open?
There's there's
Alley load,
garages
yeah.
back there.
How does Hayes Market do it?
I don't know.
You know, I mean, you talk about impossible, they don't have 20, they don't have one.
You said, what are they, 25,000 square feet? And I don't know what their weekly volume is, but
Yeah.
this
So-
store could do $1 million.
Anyways, I'm certainly aware of the two consciousnesses and I will do something about it.
With that, commissioners, do we have any other discussion or deliberation we want to, any other questions, discussion, deliberations?
Can we clarify what
We did
exactly
clarify.
we're stating this memo will say?
Yeah, I guess the two big sub-bullets under the memo requesters that we want to include both the traffic that feeds into the lots and then also within lot, right?
Yes. Both.
Both.
So,
Okay.
and I think you heard that, and Will heard that, so
Yeah,
I'll get it.
maybe with an emphasis on Mountain Avenue and Glacier.
So we're just asking him, this memo will be addressing those.
Right. I guess essentially we're asking for the case to be made that it's adequate, we're not saying that it is inadequate, we're just saying that we're not maybe being provided the high level presentation enough to know that it is adequate.
we specifically want those crosswalks
And the crosswalks.
addressed, so it's a piece of it. Okay. Anything else with the memo that we want to
I think
find or discuss?
Should we
I mean,
confer with the
make a-
town attorney to make sure we're doing things correctly?
Are we okay, Aaron?
Probably, I don't know if we wanna stipulate, but it feels to me like we wanna actually have some representative from that engineer at that meeting.
Yes.
Is
So
that
that-
possible
so-
for us to require?
Well.
I can.
I was gonna say,
I think he's
What's
already
certainly seem to me
agreed.
that-
I think the way the condition will be written, it's clear that we're asking for the expert to
Yeah.
make the presentation.
Maybe at minimum on Zoom, I think.
It is part of our job to make sure that the town council has all of the information
Yeah, I
that
mean,
we think they need, so.
the opportunity is to have the elected officials and the public be able to have conversations and to be able to get their questions answered by an expert.
Exactly.
opinion. So, to your point, Commissioner Kurtz, it's we're not saying it's inadequate, there's a concern. We wanna just make sure that that concern is addressable.
I think
And then that will be, we will add that into our motion? Yes.
Yeah,
we
so-
definitely could.
Yeah, I guess what we would have to say is, so we have two conditions, cause there was already a condition about addressing outstanding comments in the staff report. Mostly related to the Little Thompson Water District's grammatical corrections and the drainage area. So we can reference that by referencing the staff report, I guess as written, but we
Yes.
need a second condition specifically addressing the traffic adequacy presentation.
Providing a memo addressing the
Yeah.
adequacy. And two, that an engineer, the appropriate traffic engineer be present at the town council meeting, town board meeting, sorry.
Yeah, and
Aaron
again-
likes it.
I
Thank
don't
you,
know how you
Aaron.
put that last part in there, but I'll get them here.
We might need to, yeah, I was gonna say,
I'll
we,
lock them down.
a good faith effort.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You just say you strongly urge and encourage the traffic engineer to be
Yeah.
present.
Okay.
Yeah, but I somehow would think we should make clear too that, so there's requirements on the applicant, right, to look and, they look at all four corners, they'll get numbers, but I think maybe what's rising to the surface here is just all the other development that's going on too, and
Yes.
how that the thoroughfare of Mountain Avenue coming east from 287 is at risk of being done poorly,
And I
if
would-
it hasn't really been thought
I would
about.
think the traffic engineer would be looking at all of that. They couldn't just look at one piece, because that wouldn't make any sense.
Yeah, based on my experience, I believe they do that. I think we just need to be fully shown, or the trustees need to be fully shown that that's what's been done. Because, I mean, obviously, just to the south of that, you have Ludlow, 1,800 homes and commercial. So I guess we would wanna see that the traffic can handle both of those.
Yeah.
Even if the improvements are phased, you know.
And if this goes to final plat, we'll have another bite at that apple, so it's,
Yeah, I think technically under criteria 2 at final plat, we would have another go. I mean, I guess I would say I will do my best to attend the trustee meeting, so that we're not not
I
asking that.
wanna attend that one too. I wanna-
Not asking,
hear that.
for an engineer to present twice, but yes.
Can I get away with one more comment?
Sure, go
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah. no,
Jake
we're
was
still
just
waiting.
informing me, so apparently I had forgotten that one of the last meetings there was pedestrian issues, and there was a pedestrian study done as well. which is calling for the requirement of a crosswalk, push button crosswalk.
Okay,
So,
good.
Good about that.
good time.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
yes.
Commissioners, any more discussion?
I don't have any. I'm gonna be brave enough to try to keep that together. I see John
I mean, we
take a
could take a
long
photo
time.
of this too.
I was going on you. I'll take a whack at it though.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I was gonna say, I'd
Um,
take a 5-minute break if we need to.
So we may need a little bit of help from staff to make sure we get this thing polished right. So I'll start off with I'll move to forward a motion for approval of preliminary plat for West Side Crossing replat number 2 to the Town Board of Trustees. The motion for approval is due to the findings in the staff report, including compliance with land use code, the criteria for approval found in section 30-6-107B and the comprehensive plan. As stated in the staff report, this submission is conditional upon 2 conditions. First being that the applicant address outstanding staff comments found as attachments to the staff report prior to recording the preliminary plat. Second condition being a request that a traffic summary be provided to the Town Board of Trustees that elaborates on traffic to and from the site as well as commercial traffic in particular within the site. And we also would strongly urge the applicant to make sure that the traffic engineer is available for conversation and discussion with the Town Board of Trustees. How's that?
Perfect. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. All right, with that, Clerk Samora, would you please take the roll?
Commissioner Wing,
Yes.
Commissioner Smith,
Yes.
Commissioner Keldbush,
Yes.
Secretary Van Bentham,
Yes.
Vice Chair Kurtz,
Yes.
Chairperson Anderson.
Yes. Whew, we got through that. Okay. All right.
Good job.
Congratulations, thank you again. We, I think I wanna reiterate something that Commissioner Kurtz said, and that's, I think, we as citizens and as the town, are very thankful that we have that, new development happening, so thank you for your perseverance, thank you for being here today.
And you guys too, it's been a process, 4 years is because we had to go back and forth a lot, so way to be deal makers, I appreciate you tonight.
And don't forget about what we said, considering some artwork that might be a buffer, right, in that one.
You know, I was thinking about that since you said it, I wonder how we can get like maybe the local art club or something to come up with some kind of concept and make some kind of do out of it.
There's the
High school
wild-
art students,
Yeah,
right?
the high school or the Wildfire Arts Center.
Wildfire Arts Center,
Yeah, so that's already turned into my head, so it's only a good thing.
Even the monument could look artistic these days, right? I mean, there's some gorgeous monuments.
yes,
Yeah,
that would be
we'll
very
do
cool.
that. We'll make you proud on that one.
Instead of just a square, neon
Oh,
lights
yeah.
on it, you can really make that beautiful.
It's the gateway statement, you know, that's what we've been
Exactly.
living on, so. All right, folks, thank you.
Okay, with that, I think next on our agenda we have staff reports. Staff have anything they'd like to report? Thank you, appreciate our staff being with us today. Erin, lovely to have you here with us in person.
My pleasure, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The only thing I was gonna report, but as I said to everyone before we started, the surveyor beat me to it. We are going to have a new member of the commission. His name is Nick I can't even say his name. Brett can probably say it. It's Simondalis. Nick Simondalis. I had to have him say it for me when we did the interview.
Yeah.
How do you say your last name? But anyway, and he will be joining us at our next meeting, which will be August 24th. He's going to, next week, we didn't have him here today. We wanted to give him a breather and get him a bit oriented, so we are gonna do some orientation with him next week. We set up some time for him. So,
Nick's great guy. He was a comptroller for a major corporation.
yes,
Very professional. He's a really good person. I think he'll be an asset to the group.
thank you, and thank you for your recruitment effort. But the other thing I think is interesting is he did grow up in a small town and saw it they developed. And so he was very anxious,
Yeah,
to
he's
use
good.
that experience.
Similar thing.
And it's,
He's a very good person.
So with this addition, are we fully staffed?
we are for right now. We will be. Who knows what
We all got
happens next.
Christian's email today about this,
Yes.
we want to apply for the other one.
So, yeah, thanks,
So
Christian.
James didn't
He's
have a back to
already
us.
recruited.
He's smiling, look at that. All right, so with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It doesn't have to, doesn't need a second, but, or actually to vote on, so we are adjourned.
Don't we usually do a thing where we all?
Well, if you would like to, yes,
I'll
go
stick
ahead.
around.
That's it, so these businesses, again, help me understand this. Who decides what businesses are allowed to go in here? What is it,
Like-
if it falls within the scope of the zoning, then it's fine, so.
Like the actual company?
That's, two massage parlors going in there, I mean, it's.
Well, there's certain uses obviously that it's zoned for, you know. So I don't know if a massage parlor would be an accepted use there or not, but
It's all based upon the zone district, so each individual business owner would come in to the planning department and depending upon what they're proposing, we would look at the land use table in the zoning district and see if it's a permitted use. And through that, it would either be a permit or a use by right or conditional use, and it would have to go through special review or conditional review approval, which is likely the case, or site plan. So if it's a use by right, it'd be site plan review. So we would, so the zoning district's there as that mechanism to say this is allowed or it's not allowed. Yes. And then that's when we would look at those specific details to ensure that parking, layout, all that makes sense.
No, that's a great explanation. I would just add that what we've seen in commercial development in Berkeley, limited so far, is it's like the developers, a lot of times, if they've been in development for a while, they have pre-existing relationships with a lot of times with businesses, a lot, so like right outside of Heron Lakes, at the roundabout, they're coming to.
Right.
So that developer, I believe, had pre-existing relationships that he reached out to his contacts, and that's how he started kind of courting folks to fill in that development. I think the other side of it is, we do have an economic development team that works for town on staff, and they do work to incentivize certain types of businesses, like a grocery store or, sit-down restaurant, stuff like that, that I know the town is keen to have folks come here, so they try to put together some incentive packages if you meet certain criteria. I don't know exactly if they have any incentive packages available for that, but that's one function of economic development.
By the way, I'm not anti-groceries or anything, I'm super pro-grocery, but I just dealt with that stuff for 4 decades.
Yeah.
And the way this is drawn, you can't pack a semi in there, and they're gonna have they should have a minimum of 3 doors, which means 3 trucks lined up. So again, it's just, and it's all got all that residential around it, and it's tight turning, it's just, it's a serious concern.
so much of that will be kind of ironed out, I would think, with when the site plan is submitted.
And simply the developer at say at preliminary plat, if they have these ideas of what they would like to see go in there, but that doesn't guarantee
Yeah.
anything. So it's not, if it comes down to it and there isn't appropriate space to manage all those components of the business, then essentially it wouldn't be approved. It wouldn't ever get beyond if they could never show us that this is
If
gonna
this
work.
is the envelope, one of those buildings on the right or left is going away.
So just so you're aware, it's just approving the lot line, not the
Right.
structure or where the building's on there. You're just
Okay.
approving basically the arrangement of lots.
The lots,
Yeah.
not
Yeah, but again, regardless, right, semis have air brakes, they're gonna be using them, they're really loud, and it's 20 feet from a resident. And there's just a whole bunch of stuff that goes with a high-volume grocery store when you're so close to residents. And
You all made very valid points, yes. It is very well-founded concerns, for sure.
That's the part that's confusing. Because the traffic study is good, everything's good.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's what makes it hard for us.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
You would think that at some point they might actually create some exhibits for the engineers and for staff that specifically address traffic movements, pedestrian movements, signals,
Well, I think, this is where I was getting confused was, whose purview this actually falls under, like, was it the applicant's engineers, or was it like staff working with CDOT, like, who were we actually asking for this information from?
And they've got a bit of a tiger by the tail in that they're trying to sort of figure this all out without any actual
Yeah,
or
that's
without
tough.
many businesses
That
too,
makes it
so.
tough, yeah.
And then we can't tell things, but even, the transportation studies like Meadowlark Lane, would that have a left turning lane to exit?
That was my
You
question
know,
as
that's a
well,
bit, again,
yeah.
if it's a few residential cars, that's one thing,
Mhm.
but if it's the kind of commercial, the whole thing here is the grocery store, that store could easily have 20,000 customers a week, easy.
Let stop us here for a minute, I wish Aaron was here. I don't know if we can
She
continue
probably
to
cut us
talk
off.
about
Good point.
this, but we're not in a
That's a
public
good point.
meeting. We'd
Yeah,
have to
we did adjourn
reopen the meeting
we should- I
again.
think we should,
Okay.
right,
Yeah.
But yeah, yes.
Alright, see you next time.
What happens when Ann goes out of town?
Oh, but we got through a meeting without her, I think we should be proud.